All right, this is the Story Series podcast where we normally tell the stories behind the people, but in today's bonus episode, we're doing something a bit different. Whether you've been following the podcast from the beginning or you're dropping in with this episode, I thank you for listening. This is something I'm going to do every 10 episodes. I revisit the question I ask every guest. From journalists to luxury gift curators, children's book authors, workplace leadership experts, it doesn't matter. I ask everyone the same question towards the end of the interview. You might know what it is. What is a rule in your industry that you don't follow or believe in? The responses are often surprising, deeply human, and reminders that rule breaking isn't always reckless. Sometimes it's requisite to carving out a path that's uniquely yours. So we'll be back next week with a new guest and a new story. But until then, please enjoy this bonus episode. Here are the rules the first 10 guests dared to break.
You just don't listen to other people. And that sounds really strange too, because like everyone wants to be collaborative and everyone wants to like have friends or colleagues that are good sounding boards for ideas. But at the end of the day, like if you're a creative person, you have your own vision. And if you have your own vision, you don't necessarily want that to be compromised in any way, shape, or form. And I find that for me specifically over my career, when I tend to have really interesting or unique ideas, when I try to share them with people, people are like, oh, that's too dangerous. That's too risky. You're not going to do that. That's not going to work. You're never going to raise money for that. And it's just like, well, I didn't want to hear any of that you just fucking spat out in my face. And that's not why I brought this topic to you for discussion. Like, get on board or fuck off, right? Like, and I think that attitude is the only reason why I've had a television career, because I've been willing to kind of go it alone and ignore people. And sure, maybe if I'd listened to more people or whatever, I could have a show on Netflix. But it's like, well, what kind of show would that be? And would it be the show that I would want to be in, or the show that would make me proud to watch it again, like 10 years after the fact? And the great thing is like, I love watching my shows. The shows are exactly what I wanted to put out into the world. And I did them really on my own vision. And, I've had lots of arguments with people along the way, but at the end of the day, they still sell, they still rate, they still do fine. And we had to kind of go against everything and everyone to kind of get them done. So it does make them really special in that sense. And I wish I could have, I wish in 2010 I could have gone to National Geographic Television Channel and they would have been like, yeah, we love it. Like, we want to take it all and keep making them and we'll pay you well and all this kind of stuff. But the fact that they didn't do that, and then that forced me to taking this kind of like alternative path, has been such a rewarding experience. Because I think, people will tell you all the time, like, you don't learn anything from your successes, you learn everything from your failures, right? So every time I've pitched a TV show, it's been, failure, failure, failure. And then I change tack and I'm like, I'm going to do it myself. And then it's success, success, success. And then you get to put it out into the world, right? So, you always hit these roadblocks and things like that. But for me, I think the biggest thing to take away is like, you don't need anyone to tell you your idea is good if your idea is good. And the only person you need to convince is yourself.
So I think that a rule that I don't believe in is, and I think this is probably like a lot of people will tell you that there's a specific way to develop a career in the entertainment industry, or you're an assistant, but you want to make a short film or something, you're not ready, So I think that that is something where it's important to like not look for permission or other people's validation before you make the thing you want to make. That bear short that I made that, like, there were people that I like sent that script to that were like, don't make this, and just because they like didn't get it or whatever. And then I like trusted my gut and I made it. And I like have a friend who's an animator who I like brought on to do the animation for it. And now that's like such a big success that's led to, partnerships with Comedy Central and like international news coverage. And I've gotten jobs off of it. So it's like, I think don't ask for permission. And if you think that something is a good idea, like, don't wait for somebody's validation. Do it. Like, make the thing, because, ultimately you have, the most important validation is your validation and not somebody else in the comedy scene who maybe thinks you're funny or maybe doesn't think you're funny, or a writing teacher or whatever. And yeah, like learn process and be nice and be chill. But if like you think something is a good idea and somebody thinks that you're not ready for it, but you think you're ready for it, like take the swing.
I'll explain, but I don't believe in like job titles. I think everything is made up completely. And I say this with as much respect as I can to every company that exists. But yeah, everyone makes up their job titles. We all do everything anyways. Like everything, duties are always changing. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So everywhere I work, I see that you're going to work with every single department. And it gets in the way when you let your title kind of dictate what you can do. Like if, let's say, like I'm only supposed to do X, Y, Z, and that's all I'm going to do. It takes so much time to kind of really get stuff done because you're like waiting on this person to reach out to this person to get an answer for something you needed from this guy all along. So now the way I handle things is I kind of ignore all those things as politely as I can. Let's say like I need to reach out to someone like 3 departments away, but there's like 3 chains of management that I need to go through. I totally ignore that. I just go to them and I'm like, hi, like I'm new here, blah, blah, blah. Or I say that so much because I'm new everywhere, but I'll be like, oh, I was hired a couple months ago. I'm trying to find an answer to this. Can you help me? But slowly you start building like rapport with people and relationships, and they'll see like, yeah, like, oh, I know I'm not supposed to reach out to you, but I just wanted to see how I could help out. Like my team's kind of busy. Is there anything I could do? So it's really how you word it. It's how you're making people feel with your words. But I think that when you go about things respectfully and with good intentions, most of the time it works out okay. And also it's kind of that mindset that helps me get like results done pretty quick. Because the more I can reach out to other people and like understand how their job relates to mine, I get a better picture, like overall, like what are we all doing together? Like where are the bottlenecks? What can I help prepare for and avoid? So that's why I ignore the job titles and I kind of do what I think is best, but I do try to get some input on it too, because I know I don't know everything. But that's why I go. Like I like to learn.
Taking advice. Like no one knows what they're talking about. Don't ever take advice. I mean, you can take advice if someone that you respect and like, but I also think so much advice is coming from a bad place. It's like people kind of want to see you fail. People kind of want to see you not do well. And again, like, people talk with an authority, and like there is no rules in filmmaking. There is no like, sure, you have to know the basics of like the 180 rule, and you have to know how to like where to put the mic for the sound. But like those are, as Herzog would say, like, you know, that's like an accountant's truth. You know, like that's not like an ecstatic truth. Like to make something, there is no right or wrong way to make it. You know, and it's hard to make a bad movie. It's hard to make anything, you know. But I really just don't like this idea of people who think there's like a rule to how you make films. Like, oh, if someone's crying, it has to be a close up. If it's something funny, whatever. It's like, it's just for squares, and it's so boring. And like once you start having rules like that to create stuff, it's not fun, and it's also not interesting. It's like people are not dumb. You know, it's the reason The Wire is a masterpiece, man. And like, you don't know what those guys are saying half of the fucking TV show.
Like I said, book fairs are so expensive, right? Like over $1,000. I'm 24. I don't have that much money, right? So I don't even know if I should be saying this, but I don't pay it.
I love this.
I don't pay it. What I do is I'll go to the event with a wagon. Okay, I'll put my books on there. I'll have a dinky sign that says, come ask me about my book and spin for a prize. And I will walk around the event and I will advertise myself like that.
That's brilliant.
Oh, really?
I'm glad you said it.
Thank you.
I love that because you say that you're not good at this or whatever, but you clearly have a knack for figuring it out. And I think it's probably better that there's a girl with a wagon and books, which is like more visually interesting than a table, because everyone else looks more or less the same, like with their booths. And you're going around and you look legit because it's a book fair, and you're just like, oh, this is just her booth, and it's that's amazing. Yeah. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you. I love that.
I'm so embarrassed every single time I do it. And they also have a sign. Some of them have signs that say, don't do this, like don't. If you didn't buy a booth, you can't come and do this. but I still go anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? Kick you out, and then maybe you already sold a few books by then or something.
Exactly.
If you are not in the gray, you are missing that there are two sides to every story. Too many people just want to push it. They don't like gray. Push it to the black or the white. It's either right or it's wrong. It's like, no, wait. You're not truly listening because each person has logic to what they're saying. No one comes to work every day and says, boy, I'm really going to try and mess up and get fired. That's not what they do. They may do other things, but that's not the end result they're looking for. But you know what I'm saying? The reality is you've got to kind of be in the gray. And sometimes I've got operational managers and leaders that are very black and white. And it's like, I need to coach them a little bit. It's like, look, I hear where you're coming from, but there's two sides to this story. And I feel like you won't only want to hear one side of it. And they're like, you're the HR person. You wrote the handbook. You wrote the policy and procedure manual. I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote those as guideposts. Those are guidelines for you. Oh, Paul, so you're telling me rules are meant to be broken. No, I'm not telling you rules are meant to be broken. Don't put words in my mouth. But you know what I'm saying. The point is the guidelines are there, but each case has to be looked at on an individual basis. It depends are the two most important words I ever use in human resources. It depends. If the person committing the crime or making the problem has been with you for 3 weeks, it's a little different than someone who's been with you for 30 years. You got to look at the context of what's going on. There's no simple answer. If there was a simple answer, just type it in the computer. They'll tell you what to do. You don't need an HR department.
I'm not a huge rule breaker. I will find you a rule by the end of this thought. But I want to go back to the point. I teach screenwriting and I teach my students. And sometimes I sound like I tell them I don't want them to break too many rules. And here's why. I want them to get in the door. And a lot of people feel like if I'm radical and I'm crazy and I dress weird and I do weird things, I'm gonna get in the door. I'm not saying that your strangeness is an asset or a negative, but Hollywood wants what Hollywood wants. And if right now let's say they wanted big budget action films, then that's what you write them, and you don't try to break the rules by saying, I did break the rules. I put a woman in an action film decades before that was a thing. I broke a rule, so I guess I'm going back on what I'm saying. Don't break the rules. Don't do anything weird. In that case, I was looking for something that was interesting, that was outside the box, but not so far outside the box. It wasn't like, an animated character in a live action world. So, yeah.
I remember one time in class, but you would always tell us this, that the first thing someone's going to do when you send them their script is just to open it to
Yes.
make sure it looks like a script.
Rule number one is your script needs to look like a script. So there's a thing about rules. Follow the screenwriting rules. Don't put in pictures. Don't use a weird font. Don't use colored paper. And there's a couple of different reasons. One of them is back in the day, especially, scripts were photocopied. Anytime you tried something funky, you might literally make a page turn black because you used red paper, which doesn't photocopy.
Yeah.
So don't break rules. At the beginning, don't break rules, at least just to get, so that everything's formatted correctly. You want to get in the door. If you want to break rules, I'm all for that. But you need to get your foot in the door first. Even yourself, you had to follow the rules to get in. And now you can take some chances, and you can also go out there and, I'm going to try this crazy thing, or I'm going to pitch this crazy thing.
But you kind of need to know what the rules are, and then you can kind of decide what to break and what not to break, and
I think
why.
mostly it's bending rules more than breaking them, because Hollywood, again, it's really, I tell my kids, my students, I said, I want you to get in there, but I need you to get in the front door. And then if you want to get in and you get a little bit of heat on you, you could start breaking the rules.
A rule I break is to just stay in one lane. That just didn't work out for me. And for so long, I just thought that was so bad, so frowned upon, just because I would see everybody else, they're staying in one lane and they don't go left or right. They just stay here. And I'm like, why do you keep going left, right, side? It's this is chaotic. But I'm just embracing it at this point, that I am passionate about a lot of things, and it's okay that they're just all happening and unfolding at different times. But it's okay, just because I just feel like I don't want to die and know that I didn't try to do the things that I did. Because I'm sure you've had nudges before that you're just I'm sure for this podcast you're like, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. And
I'm
it's
tired
just
of thinking about it.
mm-hmm.
And who cares what happened? Just I heard this great phrase this past weekend. It's just do the work and stay out of the results. And it's like, because if you think too much about the results, that can paralyze you.
Oh, for
so
sure.
just do it. Just start.
That's a spicy question. That's a spicy question. There are a lot of them. I tend to be a rule breaker in some ways. I think for me, as an executive, there's a lot of pressure to be very buttoned up and, corporate and very professional. But the rule I break is you also need to be vulnerable. And you need to learn how to be vulnerable, not just with your colleagues internally, but also with the talent that you work with as well. Because that's where human connection derives from. And human connection can manifest itself in the art and in the work in really cool ways if you allow that to happen.
And what does that look like, being vulnerable?
I think, it's not only admitting when you need help at a workplace, but it's also when you're working, say, with a showrunner on a series and some idea really resonates with you and you want to, explain to them why this means something so personally and we should lean into this in some way because an audience member might also be able to relate. I think that those types of moments are really important. They're great for building trust with talent and for talent to feel empowered to share that back and just create this kind of bubble of, sincerity, vulnerability, emotion that can bake itself into a show in some way.
Yeah, being vulnerable, because that doesn't come naturally.
Yeah, I mean,
in the workplace.
I think there are a lot of executives who want to isolate themselves in an ivory tower and be better than thou and come down from on high and slap their notes on the table and then jet out and depart. But I do think that really trying to understand one another as humans and inviting in that reciprocal vulnerability is super important to the creative process. I like to think we work in art first and commerce second. I hope that it stays that way, but that's very critical to art, in my opinion.
I think it goes to the conformity question, right? I think I always tried to, in journalism, I think it's always just when everyone, I think Gene Roberts, editor of the Philadelphia Inquirer, said, or somebody else said, when everyone zigs, you zag. You don't. I think anybody who, especially in the field of being a journalist or a writer, if you conform to anything, you're killing the self-creative process. So I think in my writing career, both in journalism and in books, I push back more because I want to be challenged. If I'm not doing it right or this doesn't sound right, I need you to really convince me because I just can't take your word for it. And that I don't mean that to sound egotistical because a lot of people have convinced me that this is a better way to do it. But
you mean push back on notes and feedback?
On just like, why do you think, in other words, why do you think this is better? Convince me. I want to be convinced. But if you don't have a strong argument coming at me, then you can't expect me to, after putting months and months into something, to buy your argument. Like, if you're going to give me a pushback argument, it's got to be more than one sentence. And I think sometimes that challenges people because luckily at the LA Times, I was really blessed because I worked with some phenomenal editors who were really into storytelling and going out there and trying to do something where you'd fall and wouldn't succeed, but the next story we would try something better to push it. And I think the Los Angeles Times, despite all the configurations and iterations it's going through today, which not always for the better, always was a storyteller's newspaper, and I hope it doesn't lose that. But that was one of the reasons I came to the LA Times, because it was a place that was, I think the New York Times for years was editor driven, but the LA Times was writer driven, and there's a difference in manifestations of what journalism looks like on both those sides. But because we used to have a joke at the Philadelphia Inquirer was that way too, as a writer's paper. Like, somebody would say, hey,
you just give me 800 words on this, and somebody would say, well, I'm just clearing my throat at 800 words. And that's a certain conceit that needs to be extinguished too. I get that, but
Sure.
yeah.